So it's 6 o'clock, it's Wednesday, it's time for the Wednesday Weed Waffle. And today we're talking about ground elder. And if I just switch the camera around, you can stop looking at me and find the plant in question. Now, fortunately for me, I'm in my garden again, and I have some wild edges that I let anything come up in. And this stuff comes up in huge quantities. And this is ground elder. So called, this is one of its common names, so called because the leaves are quite reminiscent of elder tree leaves, but it grows along the ground, hence ground elder. It's not in any way related to the elder tree. So some of its other names include bishop's weed, goutweed, goutwort, masterwort, herb gerard. It's one of those that's got lots and lots of common names, which is why when it comes to foraging, this is like the one of the examples of why it's important to understand the scientific names. In this particular example, it's a really, really fiddly scientific name. So it's actually Aegopodium podagraria. But some of them are a lot easier to say and a lot easier to remember. But yeah, so this one is Aegopodium podagraria. Now, I usually stay away from members of this family when I'm talking about foraging, because this is part of the Apiaceae family, formerly known as the umbellifers. And the reason I usually stay away from the Apiaceae family is because they've got some fantastic edibles, including this one, but they've also got some amazingly poisonous lookalikes. That looks like one of the poisonous ones. So just for your information, what I'm talking about is there is cow parsley, which looks almost exactly the same as poison hemlock. And there is one called hemlock water dropwort, which looks in certain conditions, sometimes like broadleaf parsley, sometimes like celery, and the roots have been confused with wild parsnips. So that's why I keep away from that family. But really, looking at the leaf structure on this particular member of the family, the only thing you're going to confuse it with is possibly elder, but elder's a tree. So that's the dead giveaway. So yeah, that's the Apiaceae family. When you learn to spot this particular one, ground elder, you'll probably find that you've been walking past it and ignoring it for many, many years, because it just creates this massive sea of green everywhere. And it's a really plain green, looks just like grass and really, really easy to ignore. Until it flowers, that is. And then the same as the rest of the Apiaceae family, it sends up tall flower shoots, and at the top it has umbels of bright white flowers. Now the umbels, the root of that comes from the same place as the umbrella, because if you look under the underside of the bunches of flowers, it's got the same structure as an umbrella. But yeah, that's the only time when you could possibly confuse it, is if you were only looking at the flowers for identification. As soon as you get down to the leaves, you'd really struggle to get this one wrong. So right now it's early spring, and these young leaves are absolutely delicious as they are. Now, I do like to, although it's bad form to eat when you're talking to people, if I'm going to tell people that something's edible, I like to have a go at eating it, so they know that I'm not saying things I wouldn't do myself. It's got quite an unusual flavour. It's I'd say it's borderline pungent. It's not quite pungent. It's actually it's quite tasty. There's a little bit of a hint of parsley in there, but this time of year, when the plants and the leaves are all nice and young and fresh and soft like this, you can use it as a salad vegetable, and you can use it as a herb. As a herb, it works really well anywhere you'd use parsley, really. I like to chop it up and just stir it into mashed potato whenever I'm having mash. I mean, I've got so much in the garden, I could have mashed potato every day of the week and I wouldn't run out. Yeah, and when it gets older and the leaves are a bit bigger and a bit tougher, you can cook it like spinach and it becomes a good usable vegetable instead of a herb, which is really nice. Um, excuse me. The only thing to watch out for is once it does flower, the leaves can be a bit of a stomach irritant. However, what you can do is if you did have lots of it and you wanted to carry on eating it, if you just pinch the flowers out as soon as they appear and the leaves remain nice and fresh and edible. It's quick growing as well, so a bit like stinging nettles. You can actually just chop it back and wait for the fresh growth to come through. Um, it does spread like wildfire. There are cultivated versions of this that people plant in their gardens, and it's actually been banned from use in several states in America because it spreads like absolute wildfire. It's really, really difficult to get rid of as well. Um, as with a lot of these things, if you've got edible, non-native invasive weeds spreading all over the place, I say the way to deal with them is to eat them as much as possible. But that's just me. Yes, so they spread because they're a perennial herb, which means basically the plant stays alive for 2 or more years. But at the same time, it's also dropping seeds at least once a year, sometimes twice, and producing more plants. And it spreads from its roots as well. If you try to dig this up and you just leave a little bit of the root behind, it can easily grow back again. So it really is difficult to get rid of once you've got it. But I say, why would you want to get rid of something that tastes so good? So how did it get here? It is a non-native. You'd call it naturalized, but there are conflicting stories about how it got here. Um, as with all non-native naturalized plants in the UK, there's always a story about the Romans bringing it over. So the Romans brought it over as a food plant, apparently. But there's also stories about monks bringing it over as a herbal remedy. Now, speaking of which, it does have medicinal properties. It's gone out of favour a bit in recent years, but it kind of harks back to one of its common names, which is goutweed. Gout being a particularly painful condition that's related to inflammatory arthritis, and that's what this was used to treat. It was used to treat gout and arthritis. And what they did is they'd boil up the leaves and the roots together and then apply the whole lot as a hot compress on the affected area. Now, I can't speak to the efficacy of it. As I said, it isn't used very much nowadays. But actually, when it comes to inflammatory arthritis, any hot compress placed on an affected area is going to make it feel better anyway. But maybe there is something in this that helps with the inflammation. Who knows? Yeah, so one of the other names it had was bishop's weed. And as I'm sure most people are aware, when the monasteries were banned and mostly destroyed, the Church of England built churches and cathedrals on the same spots. And this would have been around monasteries a lot because the monks used it as a herbal plant. So then it would have naturally also appeared around churches, hence becoming known as bishopweed. One of its other names, I've yet to find out what it means. It's called masterwort. It's English masterwort and common masterwort. It sounds to me like it's something that was really important in herbal medicine, but yeah, I've yet to find out exactly why it's called that. So identification, I mentioned that it's easy to identify and it looks a bit like elder, and it does. So we've got leaves that grow in leaflets, and on these young ones, you can see it's got a terminal leaflet and a pair of leaves either side of it. They're quite broad leaves compared to other members of the Apiaceae family that usually have narrow leaves, and they're toothed around the edges. So that's at the terminus. Further down, you can see there's two pairs of leaflets here, which is you can see that it is actually two leaflets. It looks like it's one, but you can see where they're divided almost right down to the joining point. And that's how the plant grows. And it does grow in huge, huge quantities. Yeah, so I use this as a herb and as a vegetable plant, and it's just one of those things. There's not a huge amount to say about it, but there's huge amounts of it, and it tastes absolutely amazing. So, that all said, where does it like to grow? It likes to grow in places like this, along garden edges. It could be that it was planted here as a decorative plant, and it's naturalized. The decorative ones tend to have variegated leaves, but this looks like a normal one. It likes the edges of woodlands, and it likes to be in wet areas. So those are the sort of places that you want to be looking for it. It's quite common to find it in parks and along roadsides. And although I wouldn't necessarily forage from those places, they're quite good places to be able to see it for the first time and get used to what it looks like. So then you can go off and find it in much nicer places. And yeah, nutrition. Nutrition's quite important. This has actually got quite a lot of vitamin C in it, believe it or not. But it's also got quite a lot of minerals in it and quite a lot of active compounds. Sorry, I'm just trying to drag it up from the back of my memory. No, I'll have to refer back to my books for that one. But yeah, it's got active compounds, it's got lots of minerals, and it's got vitamin C. So it's a good one to have around. And that's about it for ground elder this week. So I've got a few more things to tell you just generally, but for now, has anyone got any questions or any comments, anything they'd like to ask about ground elder or foraging generally?
I'm guessing the flowers aren't edible either.
It's probably best to avoid them. I haven't seen anything that says they're not edible, but if when it's flowering that makes the leaves less than pleasant, I would think the flowers are worth avoiding as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, that just about wraps it up for ground elder then.